September usually brings price corrections to cryptocurrencies across the board, but what most people fail to realize is that actually brings us a very interesting opportunity, because typically speaking, Q4 of post-halving years are where the gains are made, and that is right around the corner. So today we're going to be taking a look at some altcoins that you need to put on your watch list for September, because if we do get that dip, you better be watching for those altcoins, because Q4 is just around the corner. So if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and let's talk about these altcoins. So first and foremost, before talking about altcoins, we need to look at Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is going to dictate what altcoins do in September. And first and foremost, we can see that on this weekly chart, we are, continuing to find support on the bull market support bands. The bull market support bands for Bitcoin are the 20-week moving average, as well as the 21-week exponential moving average, this blue and green line that we have here. And as we can see, the bottom of these wicks are coinciding perfectly with those bull market support bands. So all in all, right now, Bitcoin is in a great spot, in my opinion, and that is, the current market. Now, at the time of me recording this, Bitcoin is at 111,400. If we go on to a day chart, it's kind of been ranging anywhere from 107 all the way to 112 for the better part of the last few weeks, with some dips and of course some pumps, but overall it hasn't really done a whole lot. And if you look at it on a weekly chart, it looks very healthy still. Now, with that out of the way, you also have to look at Bitcoin dominance, because typically speaking, during September, we have Bitcoin dominance going up, which means altcoins don't necessarily do as well. So we've seen this time and time again. We see it right now in September of 2025, and you can go all the way back into different Septembers and also see that September is usually a month where Bitcoin dominance goes up and altcoins go down. And we can see back in 2020, again, September was one of those months. Now, if we take a look at historical returns for September and why typically speaking we say that September is a bad month for crypto, well, if we look at average returns for Bitcoin over the last few years, we have an average of negative 3.5% for Bitcoin. Right now, 5 days in, we're right around plus 2% for Bitcoin. August wasn't so great of a month either, and if you go on to Ethereum, it's actually even worse. So September for ETH, negative 6% on average. And if you take a look at those, different bull market years, we can see 2021 September, we had negative 13% roughly speaking for, Ethereum. And 2017, we had minus 21%. So, of course, September, based off of those, historical data points, shows us that those are not necessarily the best months for crypto. But what comes after September is the start of Q4. And as we all know, Q4 of post-halving years, Bitcoin halved in 2024, Bitcoin halved in 2020, as well as 2016. And we've had bull markets and peaks in Q4 2017, Q4 2021, and who knows what's going to happen in Q4 2025. But the theory is that that is likely what we see in the next few months, and that the September dip, if of course we get a dip, is an opportunity to make sure you're positioned for what's to come if you believe in the narrative I've just explained. Now, of course, nothing here is financial advice. It's all my own opinions, and you should be doing your own due diligence and research, because crypto is volatile and you should not be investing money that you can't afford to lose, because anything can happen in crypto. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at 8 altcoins that you absolutely need to be monitoring for September. We're September 5th. There's a whole lot of ways to go in September. And coin number 1 we're going to be taking a look at today is Ethereum. If you thought I was going to be talking about a $1 million market cap coin, well, that is just not the video for you. We're going to be talking about actual coins that you need to look at, because these actual coins are likely going to see crazy pumps in Q4, or perhaps even later, depending on how this cycle really goes. But The reason I wanted to bring up Ethereum here is because we are still, in my opinion, in the Ethereum phase. And I do think that Ethereum is going to break the all-time high it just broke in the last few weeks. The reason I say this, and one of the simplest explanations that I can bring up to is if we take a look at Ethereum dominance right now and compare it to where it was in previous markets, you're going to see something very interesting. So pulling up Ethereum dominance, we are currently at 13.8% on ETH dominance. And if we look at what happened in 2021, Ethereum dominance was around 22%. Now, 22% and 13.8%, we can say another 10% roughly to Ethereum dominance if Ethereum reaches the same dominance it was in 2021. Now, keep that number in mind, because if we take a look at the total, crypto market cap, we were just at $4.2 trillion. Right now, we're at 3.77 trillion. And in 2021, the high was about 3 trillion. So we've already surpassed what the 2021 bull market top was for total crypto market cap. And I do believe that this is going to continue into Q4. And if we just take a look at the relationship between the 2017 cycle and the 2021 cycle, well, in 2017, the total market cap was about 750 billion. In 2021, it was roughly 3 trillion. So about a 4x to that. And if we want to be very conservative for this market and say that the total market cap can do a 2x or a 3x, bringing the total market cap anywhere from $6 to $9 trillion, well, Ethereum could represent 22% or roughly 20% of that market cap, making it, again, the second biggest, largest crypto, which obviously it still is, but 20% of, a $6 trillion market cap is about 1.2 trillion. And if we take a look at the current circulating supply of ETH of about 120 million, well, that basically puts Ethereum to $10,000. Now, I know a whole lot of different analysts are predicting different prices for Ethereum. It doesn't necessarily mean that Ethereum dominance is going to go back to 20% and match some of the, dominance it had in 2021. But conservatively speaking, I do think seeing a $6,000 to $7,000 ETH is very possible this cycle in Q4, and then optimistically potentially seeing a $10,000 ETH. So looking at ETH right now at $4,300 in the month of September, again, very early in the month. Well, it's a very interesting position to look at, because if you're having the same idea as me, you're seeing Ethereum around, 6, 7 in a conservative fashion and potentially 10,000 on the optimistic side, you're looking at anywhere from 50% gains all the way to, 1.5x, all the way to about, 2.5x from the current price. And this is not to say that ETH isn't going to go lower in the month of September, because historically speaking, we've seen Bitcoin drop, we've seen ETH drop about 30% in previous Septembers. If I show you guys that on a chart, we can go back to the 2021 bull market cycle. Here is September for you for Ethereum. We have, a massive 34% dip in 2021. And if we go to the 2017 cycle, well, in September, we had ETH dropping roughly 47%. So this is something that is definitely possible. Historically speaking, we've seen massive crashes for ETH in the month of September, especially after the halving year. So if ETH were to drop, 30% from where it was, where it made new all-time highs around $4,950, we could see ETH anywhere around, $3,500. Would still respect this 50-week moving average. But ultimately speaking, if, ETH is going below 4,000, which again, nobody has a crystal ball, nobody can tell you that it is, well, in that case, you're going to have even bigger returns if ETH goes to 6,000 or 7,000, or optimistically $10,000. So that's kind of the game plan for ETH. And I do think that, as more and more companies continue to buy Ethereum, as the public treasury and demand for ETH continues to grow, I do do think Q4 is going to be undeniably a bullish quarter for ETH, and I do think we're going to get all-time highs. So that is why ETH is my first altcoin on this list. Now, moving on with altcoin number 2, we can talk about Ethereum beta plays. These coins are going to do well with Ethereum, but you also have to understand that if Ethereum drops another 20%, well, these coins are likely going to drop more than Ethereum. So if we look at the coin in question today, we're talking about Ethena, ticker ENA. This one here is sitting at a $4.5 billion market cap. It's the governance token of the Ethena ecosystem. Has everything to do with DeFi, delta neutral strategies. They have their own stablecoin in USDE, and this ecosystem is a massive ecosystem on Ethereum. Now, if we take a look at Ethena, of course, it's done very well as ETH has pumped. And the correlation is undeniable. If you go onto CoinMarketCap, you plot Ethena versus Ethereum, you can see that the blue line is ENA or Ethena, and the red line or orange line is Ethereum. So even during, the December, January hype, you see that Ethereum was doing very well. It was up, 70%, but ENA was up 400%. So again, you can see the correlation here. Ethereum is pumping, but Ethena is absolutely outperforming Ethereum. And then as ETH is, not performing too well or, going down in April, well, Ethena comes quickly back down and regresses back to where Ethereum is before, again, seeing a pump in ETH and Ethena again outperforming ETH. Now, if we switch to a day chart, something you need to understand here is that Ethereum has kind of just been struggling over the last few days. Nothing much has really happened to ETH, but you have seen something happen to Ethena. So ETH went down, a modest 3% in the last day. Not a whole lot's happening there, but Ethena, on the other hand, went down at 10%. Now, if we do that over a week, you can see that, Ethena did pump about 11%, but came right back down to what ETH was at. So I just want to show you guys that, these beta plays, whether it's Ethena, Lido, Pendle, whatever the case may be, are going to follow ETH, but the fluctuations are going to be a whole lot faster and sharp. So if you're not ready for that volatility, then the best play, in my opinion, is to stick with Ethereum. But if you want to have a little bit more risk, a little bit more, risk to reward ratio, then you can look at some of these beta plays in Ethereum's ecosystem. Because if, again, you're bullish with the same mindset that Q4 is going to bring new all-time highs to Ethereum and that these plays follow Ethereum and outperform Ethereum, well, it's kind of a no-brainer at that point. Again, not financial advice, just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, moving on to altcoin number 3, we have to talk about a blockchain I've been bullish on since the very beginning. Yes, we are talking about the base blockchain, and the coin that, represents the base blockchain the most, in my opinion, is Aerodrome Finance. It's currently sitting at $1.13, a market cap of roughly $2 billion, circulating market cap of $1 billion. And if we look at Aerodrome, it's done phenomenally well over the last month. It's up 55%. It has been retracing over the last few days as we've entered September. If we take a look at the last year, well, in April, it was at 30 cents. We bought some back in May around 45 cents. And it's essentially done a 3x since there. Now, all time, we can see that Aerodrome back in December went all the way up to $2.20. And I do believe that come Q4, we're going to see Aerodrome surpass that high. That is my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. It's not financial advice. It's just my opinion. Now, the reason I'm saying this and the reason I'm putting this coin on the list for September, because if Ethereum crashes, you're likely going to see the base ecosystem also pull back, and that is going to be a heck of a buying opportunity, in my opinion. Again, not financial advice, because one, the base ecosystem has never seen its own bull market, and it's likely to see it for the first time in the next few months. Number two, Coinbase, the exchange itself, has integrated decentralized exchange trading on their exchange. So people utilizing Coinbase as an exchange can now use Aerodrome Finance, which is the #1 decentralized exchange on Base, to trade tokens. And the whole flywheel effect of the Aerodrome ecosystem, how people can lock their Aero tokens to earn a portion of the fees that is generated from the exchange, is a perfect flywheel effect. So the other thing that we have to consider in all of this is that if you look at the current integration of the DEX trading on Coinbase, well, it's only available to about 5% of Coinbase users right now, and there's already been a 30% increase in volume with this DEX integration on Aerodrome Finance. So again, if you think of the long-term aspect of Aerodrome Finance, I think this is going to be a no-brainer looking back at these prices in Q4. And I do believe that Coinbase, as one of the #1 exchanges in crypto, is going to be the vehicle to onboard the next millions of people into crypto, and they're going to eventually trickle down into the decentralized exchange trading space, which is Aerodrome Finance, and then the flywheel continues, and likely the price of Aerodrome continues to go up. That's my narrative, and that's why I'm putting it on the list for September coins, because if it dips below $1, you best believe I'm going to be buying a whole lot more. Now, moving on to altcoin number 4, we can talk about Solana. In my opinion, the Solana ecosystem is another one of those ecosystems you can't just ignore. Base is one, Solana is another. You could go with Sei, you could go with Sui, but I wanted to bring up Solana because we've seen the amount of hype that there was on Solana back in the pump fund days when everything with meme coins really started taking off in the December, January timeframe, and Solana, looking at it, went all the way up to roughly $300. Now, it doesn't show on CoinMarketCap here, but Solana went through the roof, and the amount of demand that Solana saw was crazy. And I do think that there is going to be that, euphoria stage yet again for Solana. And roughly speaking, I can see a Solana at $400, conservatively, in the peak of this bull market, and optimistically, maybe it's around $600. Of course, this is just me speculating on these prices, but that is kind of the opinion that I have on Solana, and a lot of people are looking for a one-stop shop to do everything, and Solana is that fast and scalable blockchain that costs peanuts to interact with, very similar to what the Base blockchain is also doing. But Solana's been around a lot longer than Base, has seen a crazy amount of growth, and have a whole lot of different partnerships with Visa, with PayPal, with MasterCard, and they are also well established in the space. So as an L1, I do think you're going to need, some top L1s in your portfolio, whether that is a Solana or the other L1s we've listed earlier. That is going to depend on you. But if we look at Solana's price chart right now, and we go take a look at what's been happening, well, we do have quite a few things to notice here. Number one is that we are actually above a very crucial level on this weekly chart. We can see we're above $180. And in the past, the $180 has been a crucial pivot point for Solana. If I remove, all of these lines, we can go right around $180. And we can see that this was support and resistance time and time again. We have it, back over here where it wasn't able to break. And then we have it back in the May timeframe where, Solana dipped all the way to $100, came back to $200, was rejected. And it wasn't until recently where Solana came back above that $180. And it's been there ever since, the later parts of July. So I do think Solana is one of the ecosystems you have to have on your watch list, whether it's Solana itself or it's the proxy plays to Solana, very similar to the proxy plays to Ethereum. You can have, Pyth, you can have Radium, Jupiter. Any of the exchanges on Solana are likely going to see more volume as the bull market and alt season turns around, and Solana's ecosystem is likely going to see a new influx of money, of volume, and of users using it. So before we continue on with this video, if you want to see what I am doing with my own money in a space, have a look at the first link in the description below. That is our premium Discord. In there, I share with you guys some alpha, the market research that we do, the different private sale opportunities that we have, but you're also going to be able to see what I buy and sell. And even though we're not in an altcoin season, there are plenty of opportunities right now to still make money on altcoins. finance. So all of that is in the Discord. Have a look at it. It's the first link in the description below. So the next altcoin you need to be watching for September is none other than Chainlink. This one here is probably the best utility coin in crypto right now. It is already sitting at a $15 billion market cap. So if you think you're going to do a 10x with Chainlink, that is just not the case. You're not looking at the right coins for that. But if you're looking for, anywhere from a 2 to 5x, I do think that this is possible with a coin like Chainlink. Now, we can see if we look at 2021's high, it was around $50. Who knows if it's going to get there? I do think that if it does, it's likely going to go to $100. If it breaks the last all-time high, it's likely going to push up higher. That is my opinion. But Chainlink has had some crazy partnerships and crazy success over the last few years. Even though it's been a bear market, a whole lot more protocols are utilizing Chainlink's oracles. We have a Chainlink CCIP, so cross-chain interoperability protocol, and we have now the Department of Commerce. Yes, I did say that. The United States Department of Commerce partnering with Chainlink to publish some macroeconomic data on a chain. So they're going to be utilizing Chainlink to do this. This is a crazy partnership. And as we all know, the US administration right now is entirely pro-crypto. And a service like Chainlink, in my opinion, is only going to continue growing and bridging the gap between TradFi and DeFi. And that is why Chainlink, in my opinion, is kind of a no-brainer. So if it dips in the month of September, if we do get a September crash, definitely keep this one on your radar. Now, alongside with this one, we can talk about, RWAs. Tokenization of assets is everywhere. A whole lot of institutions and top people are bullish on RWA. We can talk about Ondo Finance. This is, of course, not the one that's going to do a 10x, not the one that's going to do a 20x. But again, if you're looking for a 2 to 5x, I do think that this is easily possible with Ondo. They've announced some crazy things over the last few days. And one of those crazy things is actually that they've gone live with their global markets and bringing stocks on chain and accessible to anyone at any time. So they say the Ondo global markets is now live with 100 plus assets and hundreds more on the way. They go into depth with the different assets that they have. You can essentially go and trade Tesla, Nvidia, Apple on chain through Ondo Finance, through the Ondo global markets. So in my opinion, tokenization of assets is at its infancy. Ondo is at the forefront of the RWA narrative, taking on this massive beast of its own, and has reputation to continue building throughout the years to come. So I don't think Ondo is going anywhere, and there are several institutions backing Ondo, and in fact, they're also using Chainlink for some of their Oracle services and price feeds as they're connecting TradFi and DeFi, or TradFi to Web3. So Ondo is another company I'm looking at for Q4, and if we look at some of the price targets I had highlighted for Ondo, right now, I had put a box around 80 cents to 90 cents. We're right around that 90-cent mark. And if it dips even lower, if Ethereum crashes 20% and Ondo is back in the 50 to 65 cent range, I'm definitely going to be buying a whole lot more, because I do think we can break this easy all-time high of $2.13 when the market recovers and when we really get into an altcoin season. So Ondo, put it on your watch list. That one is going to be interesting to see in Q4 2025. Now, the last two coins on the list today are none other than an artificial intelligence coin that I believe retail is going to gravitate to in the altcoin season. This one here is Render, has everything to do with decentralized GPU power, has a massive network of GPUs where people can actually go either lend their GPU power or borrow the GPU power all throughout the Render network. They have been in partnerships with Apple and so on and so forth. But this one here is one of the ones that I believe can easily go back to, the $12 to $13 range it was just in December. It has been being down quite substantially. And as retail gravitates to artificial intelligence, because I do believe this is one of the better narratives for this cycle, whether you're bullish on Render or other coins in the AI space, I do think you have to have exposure to that narrative. And if you look at Render, as we've said, it's been beaten down to practically nothing here. And looking at, again, if September brings a dip in the markets and Render comes back to that $2.60, which it's kind of bottomed out 3 times in the past few months, well, this, in my opinion, is a very interesting level for Render. And from there, we could likely see a bounce up. But there are a lot of companies doing competition with Render. I can think of so many off the top of my head. We have Ether, we have a Cash, we have a Desync. So a lot of companies are in the GPU space and in the AI space. But I do believe that AI and GPU demand is only going to continue increasing. So that's why I'm okay positioning myself in a GPU play such as Render, and especially with retail coming in, looking at some of the top coins in artificial intelligence in the GPU space, they're going to land on Render and they're just going to go ahead and buy it, looking at some of the all-time highs it's had. So the last coin on the list today is a coin that most of you are going to call a dino coin. We are talking about Avalanche. This is an L1. It's mainly focused on RWAs as well as gaming. I do think that it's going to bounce. I don't think that it's dead. A lot of people do think that it's dead. Let me know in the comment section below if you believe that the Avax ecosystem is dead and done for. I would say that it's not, but that is just my opinion. So we've seen from time to time, Avax is not able to break this, $25, $50 to $26 range. It always seems to have issues going there. So if we do get another drop in a crypto and, Avax goes sub $20, that is a steal in my opinion. If you look at what happened in December of 2024, Avax was roughly at $55. Back in February or March, it was at $65. If you go all the way to 2021, the bull market, it was at $150. So I do think that Avax can easily come back to that $50 mark where it was in December in an altcoin season. I do think that this right now is some sort of an accumulation phase. We are going to wait and see what happens to Avax. But again, this is another one that I believe a lot of people think it's dead, but I think it may surprise quite a few people during an altcoin season as gaming becomes relevant again, as RWAs continue to strive. I think that Avax is going to bode well this altcoin season. So with that being said, the narrative is if we do have a September dump, you're likely going to see a massive rally in Q4. If that happens and you see red across the screen, do not, just FOMO into selling. Do not panic sell. Don't necessarily just FOMO buy everything. Look at where things are. Look at what's happening with Bitcoin. Look at what's happening with Ethereum. If it holds key levels, well, it may just be another typical September dump. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, check out the private community, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.